What is going on, guys? Good morning, good morning, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon if it is for you. We are back with another episode of the podcast, and I am super freaking stoked to be able to have your ears this morning or this afternoon or this evening, whatever it is. So if you come into this one live, guys, you know the drill. Get down into the comments. Let us know that you're here. We're going to be kickstarting this episode in approximately 2 minutes. And here to deliver value this morning, guys. So let us know, how's your week been? What's been happening? Are you winning the week? Are you ticking the boxes? Guys, if you watch this on replay, please make sure you get down to the comments and hashtag replay so that we know you've been here and got the juice. It helps us track who's tuning into the podcast and who we might need to reach out to if they're a little bit quiet. So guys, we're starting this one up in 1 minute, ready to rock and roll. Thank you so much for using your names here, because again, this is so frustrating that that I can't use this streaming service, but we're going to actually have to come up with a workaround for the podcast very shortly, because at the start of April, Facebook is stopping us from actually being able to use any external streaming services. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge, but we'll see what's going on. But anyway, let's say a nice little hello to everyone. Hello, Cara. I hope you're having a beautiful start to the morning, girlfriend. Hello, Maxi boy, here nice and early, ready to get the juice. Hello, Ames. How are you, mate? Who else we got? I must say the Warrior shirt looks better on you. Asshole. But it was good. It was good to put on the Warrior shirt for a while. I'm not partial. I certainly didn't chuck it out, Sean. It's on the trip with me to Bali, so there might be a couple of gym sessions that get the Warrior shirt turn out as well. So happy days, mate. All right, guys. Jace, it's Jace. Yeah, Jace, it's Renee. Hey, guys, look at this. How good's this? All the crew coming in. I know it's quite early for a lot of you, but not as early it is for me. It's 3 a.m. here in beautiful Bali. So I'm not looking my best. I feel like you could probably blindfold me with a piece of dental floss, to be fair. But all is well. I think we are ready to get this party started. So we're going to bring this in on Instagram as well. And we are ready to rock and roll, guys. Let's do this on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the Better Body Academy podcast. This is the podcast that you come to when you are sick of the dumb diets and unsustainable workout programs. I think we're approaching, nearing in on episode 300, maybe in the next month to 2. So I want to thank everyone that downloads the podcast, gets some value out of it, turns up every week at the same time. And please, if you want me to do a specific episode addressing a specific topic, then just send me a message and I will try to put something together on that episode. At the end of the day, the podcast only exists if you guys actually consume it, and it's starting to build some traction now. So thank you very much for having me here this morning, guys. Like I said, 3 a.m. here in Bali, so if I'm a bit slower this morning, that's the reason why. I wanted to come in and effectively do a reflection podcast in my takings from our recent women's only retreat. Now, to all of you boys that are thinking to yourself, oh, well, time for me to switch off, I guarantee you do not need to switch off. We're going to do a quick fire podcast here. But spending what was 2.5 days with some amazing women has reminded me of a few of the lessons that I've learned in my life about what is required if you want to thrive. Now, these girls, like all people who come together, were really, really nervous at the start. Like, can you relate to that? You go to a barbecue, you meet a bunch of people, you kind of like awkwardly shake hands, and that was the vibe at the start. That is always the vibe at the start when you bring a bunch of people together who don't really know each other. But as conversation starts to flow, we bring down our walls a little bit. Some straight down, some take a little bit longer to get down. But what I saw was a very big transformation in perhaps self-belief over the course of the few days we spent together. To be fair, in hindsight, I would have liked the retreat to run maybe a day or two longer. I think that one of the lessons that I learned, which is really interesting and I didn't expect, is that it actually seems to take longer for women to pull down those walls than it does for men. I think, my experience has been that men might not talk, but as soon as you give them the opportunity to do it in a safe space, walls come down quite quickly. I don't know if you agree with this, Jace, or the boys that were at the men's retreat, but certainly with our women, it just takes a little bit longer. And one of the understandings that I've got from that is that women are hypercritical of each other. And it's not almost like that they want to be, it happens almost subconsciously, right? We make judgments, we make insights about people. We don't even necessarily like the fact that we made the insight or the judgment, but we just did it anyway, right? And how many of us spend all our time looking at everyone else, and rather than garnishing some level of, what would you say, inspiration off the back of that, instead we take away a bunch of, comparison. And as a consequence, I'm not as good as this person, I'm not as smart as this person, I'm not as handsome as this person, not as pretty as this person, not as skinny as this person, not as muscly as this person. And we're always using these external references, right? And then this builds our own identity. So I want to share with you 5 takeaways that I've garnished from this retreat that I think are very, very, very worth sharing to anyone. The first one of these takeaways is that proximity is power, okay? This was a statement my coach has taught me, but I just love sharing that. Proximity is power. What does that actually mean? Well, look, what online coaching and online forums, like the post-COVID era particularly, has allowed us to do is incredible, right? Think about this. You're in your home, getting your kids ready for school or prepping breakfast or late at night sipping a wine, and you can listen and have an interaction with someone on the other side of the world. I think that's pretty fucking cool. The challenge with it is that there is no absolute replacement for being able to touch another human, right? A lot of you will be very tactile people like me. I'm a very tactile, visual person. And I need to, for me, when I just get to be in the company of another person that inspires me, it makes me feel just completely transformed. How many of you are like that? Like you feel like your main communication method is like being there with someone. And for this reason, whenever you get an opportunity in your life to go and be with people in a safe or energetic, whatever the thing that you're looking for, whenever you get the opportunity to do that, you should take it up. Now, for me, 2 weeks after I get back to Canada, I'm going to my own in-person retreat, if you want to call it, with my coach and a bunch of PTs and trainers. Do I have to go? Probably not. Could I do with not spending the money? Absolutely yes. But what I know is that proximity is power. And when you are proximate to other people that are either in your situation or in your eyes inspiring and doing better than you, it rubs off on you. It's almost like the coming together of 2 or more people transfers an energy that is very difficult to transfer electronically. I think in a world that is, in theory very connected, the vast majority of people are lonely and disconnected. Would you relate to that? The vast majority of people are lonely and disconnected. And so being able to get in the presence of people, there is something about that that recharges you. So my question to round out this point is, what are you saying no to as a consequence of your social anxieties? What are you saying, you know what, no, I'm not going to do that. Now, there's a difference between setting barriers and choosing a no because you've got limited bandwidth, and actually saying no because you're scared of judgment, you're scared of rejection, you're scared of the interaction. We're missing out on so much. Now, there are people that hop around doing different seminars and different conferences, and they jumped all these different things and then do nothing. So there is absolutely a practical application to this, but if you get the ability to spend some time with people in person, particularly in the absence of phones, it can help delete the shit that builds up in your head. And I feel like reading the comments of our chat group, that's exactly what a lot of the ladies felt like after the couple of days together. Let's go to point two. Point two is that everyone, all of us here, has the same universal fears and doubts and limiting beliefs. The problem is that when you and I are left to feel those feelings without expressing them, right? We tend to think that we're the only ones feeling those feelings. Feelings of not being enough, feelings of not being worthy enough, not having enough, not loving myself enough. We discussed this on the men's Australian coaching call the other night. And I asked the boys to talk about the one thing that they are proud of. And it takes a lot of encouragement and coaching to actually get men to say what they're proud of. That was my experience with the women as well. We have these doubts that almost like imprison us. And we think that we're the only one feeling like we're not enough. We're feeling like we're the only one that's struggling with our fitness journey. We feel like we're the only one that's struggling, with our financial position not increasing as quickly as we would like to. We feel like we're the only one that is struggling in a career that is like, oh man, this is not giving me any pleasure. It's not taking me closer to where I want to be. And so what usually happens is when we feel those feelings of self-doubt, we try to deal with them on our own. What that transcends into is self-sabotage. No one listening to this podcast right now wanted to put on weight because they wanted to put on weight. 95% of people, right? We put on weight because here we are trying to deal with a million different things in our life. We've gone from being totally me motivated when we were 20 years old to totally we motivated when we're 25, 30, 35 and start having kids. And that changes the landscape. And so we start to create these self-doubts. These self-doubts start to embed on each other. And all of a sudden we wake up one day 20 kilos, 30 kilos heavier and we've lost ourselves. So the second point that I want you to take away is just understanding that everyone feels self-doubt. Everyone at times feels like they're not enough. Everyone at times wakes up and questions, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I actually think there's part of this which is a good thing. If you didn't feel that, you would have no presence or consciousness to take you back on track. If you didn't have those reminders come up in your mind that get you to question what you're doing, well, guess what? You're going to just accept everything and anything that comes to you. So I actually think that having that dialogue happen in your mind occasionally is okay. Just understand that you're not on your own. Third point, and this is a big, big point, and I am going to quote James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. And he says that winners and losers have the exact same goals. Goals don't determine outcomes. Actions determine outcomes. I'll say that again. Winners and losers have the exact same goals. Let me ask you a question. There's 25 people listening to this podcast live. There'll be another 1,000 that will listen on replay. The question I want you to ask yourself is this: would you like more money? The universal answer would be, fuck yes, I would love more money. It'd make my life easier. So everyone would like more money. Some people have more money, some people will make more money, and some don't. There is a mindset to contend with here, but it's not to do with just writing a goal. To all of you that came to the retreat, you wrote down some things. Whether or not those things manifest in your life or not is going to take you saying, you know what? I wrote down this thing. This is important to me. I'm going to take action around it. It is so easy to just get swamped in life. Like I get the same thing. I've drawn my own conclusions about where I am with goals and intentions after that retreat. But the fact is, you're not going to itch any closer to your so-called goals, to the dream life that you would love to acquire, if goals remain goals. I would have loved to spend way more time doing this at a retreat, but as it were, it was challenging, obviously keeping the conversation to the direction that we wanted to go with 30 people in the room. But one of the things that I would have loved to have done is said, okay, what you want to bring into your life, let's actually break that down. So for you, ask yourself the question as you're listening to this podcast, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve? And don't just say something. What do you want to achieve? Okay, do you have an action plan for hitting that? Is the action plan I'm just going to wake up in the morning and hope that things happen? Without being critical, that's pie in the sky stuff. The hard thing for a lot of people is that they look at their schedule and they say, okay, I take that point, Jace. I want things to happen. I don't have a plan, but I have no time. And give me a hell yes if that feels like you. So then I want you to think, well, okay, if that's true, I'm just going to write down everything that I do. And I guarantee you, if you're honest with this process, you will find an hour, 2, or 10 in your week that you can dedicate to actioning a plan as opposed to just thinking about actioning a plan. Winners and losers have the same goals. Actions are what determine outcomes. Let's get to point 4. And I'm taking this point, and I mentioned this at the retreat, I'm taking this point off the back of listening to our, let's say, middle-aged girls. I don't know if they're watching on live or not, but Julie Crosby, Michelle Stone, and Kylie Whitelam. It was clear to me, being in the company of that many women, that there is a stark difference between the mindset of someone who is 40 or 30 or 20 and someone who is, mid-50s and 60s. And here is and I know that there's a few men of that vintage watching in here as well. So we've got Teza, Nick Friend. What ends up happening is you reach a point where you've got enough life experience, right? You've collected enough life experience that you've started to understand that there's an old way of doing things that just doesn't work. I got into a really deep conversation with Michelle Stone, and she privately said to me, you know what, I feel really sorry hearing a lot of the rhetoric that I'm hearing both here at the retreat and from women generally, because it's very self-condescending, it's critical, it's constant, and the need to try to be someone and show up, and it's overwhelming these men and women to the point where they end up doing nothing and not living their life. The wisdom that I took from really these 3 girls was, fuck man, life is really, really short. It's really short. And some people just don't like this type of a conversation because it feels too confronting, and that's completely fine. But here's a great activity, and I did this a while ago, and as simple as an activity it is, it just belted me square between the face. Put down the average life expectancy of Australia or the UK or whatever country that you reside in or that you consider yourself from. Write down that many squares in a grid. So let's just say it's 80, like it is in most countries, I'm going to put 8 by 10 squares. Because I'm a visual person, I need to see and feel this, right? I need to see it in front of me. And then I want you to go through and cross out. Do this. I challenge any of you to do this activity and post it in the group. It's so simple. Draw a grid with 80 squares on it, like a crossword grid, and then just go through and with a big black texter, cross out the years of your current age. And if you're 42, nearing 42 like me, I'm going to cross out 42 squares. And the smack in the face that you get is, holy shit, I'm either halfway through my life, or I'm a third of my way through my life, or I'm 2/3 of the way through my life. Bearing someone coming up with, immortality, there's a fucking reality here. There's a reality here that if you say, you know what, like, if I can get comfortable with this, then I can start living. Then I can start freeing myself with needing to fucking please everyone else and live my life according to everyone else and what they expect me to be. If you keep showing up as a version of yourself which is for other people because you need that validation, I understand how hard that is to break. But at the same account, the chances of you getting to the so-called end and feeling any sense of fulfillment or being able to live in the moment because you're just trying to fucking... you know what it is? You don't want to look like a dick in front of your mates. Let's make this really simple. Fear of failure is, I'm in a girls group, right? I'm in a girls group, there's 10 girls in our group, or I'm in a guys group, there's 10 guys in our group, and everyone's playing the same game. Everyone's just being the same. And that's okay, but you're not everyone, right? If you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that you want something more than you have now, right? Some growth. So you got to look amongst your group and you say, well, am I willing to fall flat on my ass and look like an idiot in front of people? And for the most part, you might say, yes, of course I am. I don't care about other people's opinion. But you do, because you're not doing the thing because you're scared of other people's opinion. You've got to have that honest conversation with yourself. And if you feel like that's you, like, you're going to hear this message 1,000,000 times if you go back and listen to the potty. I get what it feels like to feel stuck, to feel like, fuck man, I'm just waking up and going to work. That's what it feels like. And what ends up happening is the change comes when something happens in your life that you don't want to happen. A heart attack, your dad dies, and that just completely pivots your world. And I know a few of you listening to this, as I look at this names list, I'm like, yep, that's what's happened to that person. Yep, that's what's happened to that person. Dude, it takes real courage to make change ahead of that thing happening. But you might save your life. You might save your kid's life. You might teach them a different way of living, and that is extreme power. Guys, I'm going to get to the final point. Final point, and this is on a softer note, is that sometimes doing nothing is like doing everything. I mean, for me, during the retreat, I mostly continued to work because I saw the retreat as for the girls, not for me. So I mostly continued. I didn't take too much downtime. But for a lot of the ladies, after the retreat, I'll just be completely honest with you. I was evaluating how I thought it ran and how I thought I could do things a little bit better next time, how I could drive a conversation, who I could get involved. But reading the chat group, it seemed like, regardless of what happens from here, it was exactly what the ladies needed in terms of a break. And I don't think it's a negative to say, sometimes I need to press pause on all the things I'm doing just to take some downtime. I don't necessarily think that the answer to self-care always lies in a massage. But there is really something about laying back in a hot tub or a sauna, or in this case, ladies doing ice baths at 2 degrees for 2 or 3 minutes at a time. There's something that's like just great about disconnecting. We're always talking about connecting. And I do think that we've kind of got this society which is a little bit void of connection for the most part. But the lack of connection is not a proactive disconnection. It's not like everyone is not connected because they're spending so much time doing offline activities with themselves recharging. They're kind of sitting in this fucking shit void in between, which doesn't feel good, doesn't recharge you, And so what I saw is that sometimes just turning your phone off, spending some time in the sun, just talking, being okay with like some of the, okay, we probably ate our weekly calorie target in 3 days, right? But that's okay if you're playing the long game. If you're playing a short game where you've got to make every day balance so that you lose 200 grams on the scales at the end of the day, well, that's not very good. But if you're playing a long game, which you're like, you know what, if I'm 5 kilos down by the end of the year and I've been putting on weight for years and years and years, that's a win. So getting that disconnection in and really just like, you know, how do I not zone out as in not think, but how do I just be present? I think that's a remarkable way to do it, is to take yourself, if you can, to a very short holiday with or without your kids. You know, maybe consider, if you can, getting a nanny to reclaim some of your time. It is fucking hard when you've got a little kiddo who is sick, you've got, you know, 5 kids, a business to run, work to do. It's very overwhelming. And sometimes we just need to press a little bit of a stop. So I'm just going to hammer you with the 5 reminders. Again, number 1, proximity is power. Get good at directly connecting and saying yes when you get an opportunity. There's a raw challenge on this weekend. I'm just going to go for the connection, for the proximity. Everyone has the same universal doubts and fears. So when you wake up this morning and you're feeling that rhetoric kicking in where you're doubting yourself, just understand that everyone has that. We're all at different levels of being willing to overcome that. Number 3, life is about actions, not goals. Set some goals, great, but you got to have an action plan. And if you're waking up today and you have no idea what you're doing, don't expect too much. Number 4, life is really short, and living your life seeking the approval of others is no way to live. And then finally, is that sometimes, you know, what we really need is just some good old downtime. And being able to have something like that to look forward to in your life every, say, 6 months or 4 months or whatever you could feasibly do is a really, really good plan to have. Guys, I'm going to love you and leave you there. This has been the Better Body Academy podcast, reflecting on our recent women's retreat and the 5 keys that I took away, which would help you to thrive a little bit more. I'll stick back to discuss with any of you guys who want to talk about it. This has been the podcast for today, and I'll see you in the next episode. Okay, guys. I was hesitant to do a podcast on the women's retreat because obviously a good portion of our audience are men, and they might be like, well, this shit doesn't apply to me. But then when I thought about it, it really, really does apply. As much as men and women are very different creatures, and that is clear to me. I mean, myself and Troy were just like, this didn't happen at the men's retreat. Face masks, cutting off the drinking at 10 o'clock at night. Not from us suggesting so. What else? Like conversations that go 17 years that way, and you're like, how the hell did we get there? Having said that, I've got some ha-has in the comments. Yeah, that's exactly right. It was fucking weird for me. But I'm sharing this because, you know, I don't think that the struggles are necessarily crazily different between men and women. Maybe the perception is, maybe the way we look at it is, but there's some universal takeaways I think come out of that. And one of probably the biggest one for me is that if you're just trying to do this on your own, if you're just like swinging the axe by yourself every day, getting in the grind, telling yourself how much of a grind it is, reminding of yourself how difficult it is, there's no pattern break. You're just doing the same thing, expecting a different result. Like, I can't say this any more without sounding like a wanker. Like, it is literally the people that go out of their way to make connections online and offline with people who are in the same position as them, they're the people that win. And they win because they're exposing themselves to a wider range of information. The only way we can change this thing up here, this so-called mindset, which is actually a set point. It's not static. You can change your mindset. But the way you change your mindset is this. I'll just give you the gold. You sit in the company of people who are talking about things other than the news, gossip. Look, those things play a role, sure. But talking about growth and talking about business and talking about money and talking about health and talking about things that are beyond your current scope of conversation with your current group. And so what happens is, here's what happens. Like this is, we're confused by this, but this is actually what happens. It's pretty simple. You expose yourself to new information. In your conscious mind, that new information floats around as you critique whether that is true or not. And then what happens is you make a decision whether you accept that information or you don't accept that information as being true. I'll just give you an example. Going to a retreat and setting an action plan is a good idea. That's something that maybe you might not get in your current friends group. Okay, setting an action plan is a good idea. And so you think about this, a few of you are no doubt kind of thinking to yourself, oh, fuck, I need a bit of an action plan, right? And so that's in your conscious mind at the moment. If you keep hearing off other people that an action plan is a good thing, an action plan is a good thing, an action plan is a good thing, you keep hearing that same message over and over and over again, you'll start to accept that as being the truth. And then it will go from being conscious through repetition, like a stamp on your mind, stamp, stamp. Action plan's a good thing. Action plan's a good thing. And you hear it, and then all of a sudden what ends up happening is it gets imprinted into your subconscious. And then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes part of you. You start to wake up, and instead of going, oh, I need an action plan, you're like, right, where's my action plan? And it becomes habitual. I want to go and do a marathon. Okay, cool, that's really daunting to me. Right, so what am I going to do to plan this out? This is the way, whatever your body does. Let me talk to you about this is true, I'm going to make an action plan now. I love that, Maxi. So think about this. Let's reverse engineer this. For anyone that wants to stick around, let's reverse engineer this. I fucking love this stuff because so think of the primary so I've got roosters going bananas here because it's 4 o'clock in the morning and they're starting to get up. Okay, so think of the things that you want to change in your life, right? They're going to be, you want more money, you want better relationships, you want a better physical body. They're the main 3 things that most people want, right? So you think about those things and you work backwards. How am I going to get a better physical body, as an example? You can't do it by just thinking about it. The body itself has to do things. Let's say that you want more money. Well, you can't just sit in your office and think about money. Your body has to do something to produce money. That might be going to a conference or that might be working at a job, whatever it is for you. So the body physically has to do something, right? Okay, so what determines what the body does? We're working backwards here off a chain. You want more money, health, relationships. Let's work backwards. The body has to do something. Okay, what drives the body? What drives the body? And you're going to say the mind, right? Okay, what part of the mind? Well, the habitual mind. It's called the subconscious mind. The body is driven by the habitual way of thinking, the things that you've relayed over to become automatic. You got up this morning, you probably did the same thing, had a poo, had a shower, brushed your teeth, will go and have breakfast, went to the gym, blah, 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 blah. You've got a chain of events. Those things happen habitually. So the body is driven by the habitual way of patterns. So then keep going to the final level. How were those patterns created? They're created by thoughts coming into the conscious mind about what's true or false. And if you repeat the patterns, they become subconscious. If you don't repeat the patterns, they leave the conscious mind. Does this make sense, guys? Like, let me know in the comments. There's still 14 people watching on live. Let me know if this makes sense. You want outcomes, it's driven by the body. The body has to do something. The body is driven by the subconscious mind, the habits that are locked in the subconscious mind. How do you change your habits? With your thoughts in the conscious mind. So whatever thoughts occupy your conscious mind over and over and over and over again, that is what's going to turn into a habit, which is going to turn out into the body and what the body does, which is going to produce the outcome. So then the question is, how do you change your thoughts? That's the key question. How do you change your thoughts? You change your thoughts by being in a room with the right people. You change your thoughts by changing your environment, because you become exposed to thoughts that you haven't had until that point in time. And once you do that, things start to change. There's some coaching 101. Okay, guys, I'm going to peace out. Hopefully that's been helpful. Love you all. See you in the next episode.